All right, everyone. So we'll give people, I'll make an introduction and give some more people a chance to log on. But today we have Dr. Karen Vieira with us today. Thank you so much for being here and everybody who is attending. Dr. Karen Vieira owns the MedWriters and is an author and speaker. The MedWriters is a team of PhD medical scientists, physicians, and neuropathic doctors that write and edit marketing and technical documents for healthcare, pharma, and wellness companies, as well as federal agencies. Karen has a doctorate in biomedical sciences and a master's in management. In 2016, she was awarded the SBA's Miami's Woman-Owned Small Business Person of the Year. She became a Maui member last year. For some things before we get started, if you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask them before or during and after. You can use the Q&A feature at the bottom, or if you would like to, you can use the chat feature. If you would like to go ahead and speak or ask your questions in through the microphone, just raise your hand and we'll enable your speaking feature. And Karen, I'll hand it off to you now.
Thanks, Bethany. Hi, I'm Karen, and I'm super excited to share with you guys today. I am a part of the Maui community as well, and when my coach suggested that I share with the community some of the things that I've been working on in light of the COVID crisis, I thought that was a great idea. And so this is one of the things that our company has been working on as a way to help others and try to, everybody keeps saying get things back to normal. So I don't know if we'll ever get back to normal, but we're trying to get back to a new normal. And so this is part of that for us, for our team. We're trying to help other companies understand what they can do safely and things that should be avoided. All right, so just a little bit of housekeeping on top of what Bethany just shared. I have a very short presentation today because I'm going to give you some information, some food for thought, but I also am just here to be of service. So I figured that you guys probably have questions about how do you apply this in your business and maybe some scenarios of things that are happening in your business. So I will go through my slides pretty quickly. If you have any questions while I'm on a particular slide, go ahead and type it in or put your hand up and Bethany will let me know. But otherwise, I'll get through my slides pretty quickly and then I will open it up for your questions and I will take your questions as long as we're able to stay on the line. So I definitely won't delay or keep you here longer than we have to. All right, so with that, I will jump right in. And all right, so the reason we're here, obviously, the why now, why am I talking about this today? Businesses have to get back to work. Some businesses never stopped working in person. So depending on the type of business you own, you might be in one of probably three boats where you either never stopped working in person or you stopped working in person and moved to remote, but you're still working. And then there's some that just stopped altogether because it wasn't possible to work remotely and it wasn't safe or it wasn't essential to work in person. But at some point, we all have to get back to work. There's only so long that the company can stay closed and the economy as a whole. So we know it's coming soon. I'm not going to try to make any predictions. We have enough of those from the presidential announcements. So, what I keep telling people though is coronavirus is not going away this month, next month, because people keep saying, I can't wait till next month when things get back to normal. Or I can't wait till June when things get back to normal. That's not going to happen. And, I would love if it would, but unfortunately, we're in a new paradigm where this has just become a new virus. And so think of it as this is our new flu and it's here. And it may be here for a long while. It may be here permanently. Let's see how some of the scientists do in terms of finding a vaccine. Typically, vaccine development takes 10, 15, 20, I've even seen 30 years. They're trying to predict that this one can be done in 1 year. It's never been done before. But I'm setting that backdrop not because I want to sit here and talk about coronavirus and all the crap that's being slung on the media, but just we need that backdrop to understand that business has to get back to work, but it has to go on safely. So it can't get back to our old normal. The normal we had last month, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, that's gone. And it's just, I keep telling people, remember September 11th? Do you remember what it was like to travel before that? I used to have all kinds of crap in my carry-on luggage. And then all of a sudden, the ability to do that disappeared. And it became, you know, a lot more screening, and, you know, you can't have liquids and gels, and, you know, a lot more went into traveling. But it didn't mean we couldn't travel. It became our new normal. And so we have to find our new normal and get back to work safely. So that's what I want to talk about today. So there's a lot of problems that businesses are trying to work through. As I've been talking to a lot of business owners, some are clients of mine, some are other small business owners that I know through this community, other communities I'm a part of. And what I'm hearing is, you know, there's just so much, and a lot of people are overwhelmed. So I'm here today to help you start thinking some of this through. And you may be able to look through some of this and go check and be like, hey, I'm in good shape. I've got this all figured out. Or I might be able to touch on something that helps you to see, hey, that's something we haven't thought through, so let's think that through. All right, so obviously the first thing is creating some kind of a cleaning or disinfection schedule and process for your business. Now, I'm going to keep this very general because, you know, whether you own an office where your customers may come in and interact, or you own a warehouse, or you own a manufacturing facility, or you are, you know, a retail business versus a wholesale business versus, you know, there's the world of possibilities. So this is very general, and the question and answer period at the end will allow you to ask your specific questions about some of these things and how it would impact you. So you definitely want to create a cleaning and disinfecting schedule. If you already have a janitorial service, you want to get in touch with them and figure out how frequently they can come in, what you can afford versus what they can do. Now, be aware that OSHA and CDC they do have guidelines in terms of COVID. They're very loose right now, but I expect them to get tighter. And it's something as a business owner to keep your eyes on, because they're saying very general things right now about keeping employees safe, and, you know, encouraging hand washing and encouraging employees that are sick to stay home. Very basic things, but I do believe it's going to get more in depth as time goes. So keep your eyes on that, because you don't ever want to be in a place where you are in violation of any of their guidelines. So you want to think through the different situations that may occur in your business where you might want to have a policy. And if you have an office space where people are in, you know, in fairly close proximity, it may be time to change the layout of the desks. Some of our clients are actually looking at changing some of their workers to shifts, so that even though they have a crowded office, some people are in early and some people are in late, and there's very little overlap in the middle, so it's not such a crowded space. You also want to think through what kind of policy you want in place for any of your employees that are interacting with customers face to face. Now, obviously, if you have a retail type business, that's all, you know, you're doing is face to face interaction. And you want to make sure that you have everything in place so that that face-to-face interaction with the general public goes very safely, where you're protecting your employees. They come to work feeling happy and secure, knowing that you're doing everything you can to keep them safe. And that includes providing them with disposable gloves and masks and things like that. We'll get into that in the next slide. So if you have employees working together in close quarters, you've got to figure out how are you going to put some space. And if you're not going to put some space, how are you going to put some gloves, masks between them? I've talked to other people that are thinking through deliveries. If you think about anytime something arrives at your office or your facility or your warehouse, you don't know where it came from. You don't know who sneezed, coughed, touched it, whatever. So I tell people all the time, assume everything is infected. It's just easier that way. And so if you're receiving deliveries and you're assuming that it could possibly have virus on it, then it's a procedure to clean, wipe down, safely unpack goods and get rid of possibly contaminated cardboard boxes, those types of things. Some people are working through a process of just letting boxes sit, and they receive and they don't touch, and it sits overnight, 2 days, whatever, before they get in and unpack it. So all these things are options depending on what's available to you in terms of your business model. Travel is essential for some people's businesses. Obviously, some of you are on the opposite end of the deliveries where you're the one delivering, and you've got truck drivers that are out there and they have to interact with the customers they're delivering to, the warehouse staff. There's things to be signed. This may be the time to take some of those things digital. Some companies are actually thinking through a policy now where they ask their customers if it's okay for their delivery driver to sign for them upon their consent. They arrive, they drop the boxes, and then instead of you having to touch, their paper or whatever, they just say, okay, all right, I'll sign for you, just put an X. Or you take your own pen, you never once touch their paper, and you put your signature. So thinking through how to do things safely. And then these two at the bottom are very important, because if you're going to provide your employees with disposable gloves, disposable masks, or even reusable masks, they have to understand how to use them. And so we're making a very big assumption in society right now where people think that they know how to correctly use gloves or masks. And I didn't put any of the pictures in here that are floating around social media, but I'm sure if you guys have been on social media or you have left your house to go get groceries or something, you have definitely witnessed the incorrect use of gloves and masks. And people are touching things with gloves and then touching their face, their phone, their car. As they get in the car, they're driving with the gloves on that they had on in the grocery store. It's an epic fail. And you don't want your employees doing this, because then your customers see it and go, whoa, it's not safe to shop there. Or the other employees in the office see it and they go, whoa, I don't want to work here with these other psychos that are putting me at risk. And you don't want that type of working environment for your company. So it's understanding when to use the gloves and how to use them correctly, when to wear a mask and how to wear it correctly, how to put it on and take it off so that you're not contaminating your own mask, how to store it if it's going to be reused. Some people have just one N95 mask and they're using it day after day, which is fine, but are you going to disinfect it? Where are you storing it? How are you handling it? All these things need to be thought through. So as a business, if you're going to provide these things, you also have to provide training on how to use them. So everybody keeps asking me, what do I tell my team? Like, how do I make sure I'm conveying the right message? So the first thing that you want to tell them, which this is the most important thing, stay home if you have any symptoms at all of any kind of upper respiratory tract problems. And I've heard people share nightmare stories of, I went to work and my boss is coughing and I don't want to be around him. I don't feel safe. He's not wearing a mask, but he won't go home. He thinks there's nothing wrong. He says, I have allergies or whatever he says. And so it has to be something that you make very clear as a policy. If there's this, then you do this. If you have any of these symptoms, then you are required to stay home. and it's non-negotiable. You will be paid for sick leave if you're in a type of business that has that available. You want to tell your team that it is mandatory to wash their hands, and correctly, because again, I see people washing hands and I just, oh, they wash hands like my 8-year-old, 30 seconds. Yeah, right. It's like half a second and they missed half of their hand. So you want to make sure, again, that you're training them or posting, here's how you wash your hands correctly. And we are requiring that you wash your hands as many times a day as is feasible. Every time you touch something that you're concerned somebody else may have touched, please go wash your hands. Again, teach them how to correctly use gloves and masks. So you have to emphasize that they have to learn that. You have to tell them to please wipe down door handles, light switches, phones, their desks, whatever, cash registers, any areas that are high touch areas where they feel like other people may have touched it and then they're going to touch it. And the important thing here is tell them to do it with disinfectant wipes and provide that and put it in, strategic locations where they have access to it, but do not provide sprays. What I have read about, and makes perfect sense about the sprays, is if you imagine you have a can of, let's say, Lysol spray, and you're worried that somebody came and they kind of touched your desk, and now you're going to sit and work there. You want to just spray it quickly. The force of that spray, if there's a virus particle on that desk, the force of the spray is going to basically blow that virus particle up into the air, where you can now breathe it in. If it was sitting on the desk, now it's not sitting on the desk anymore. So those sprays actually are more harm than good, because they will actually kind of stir things up and get particles floating up in the air again. So it's way safer to use disinfectant wipes. And I've been preaching this message for a long time. The reason that I believe in wipes, or even just taking a damp cloth and putting some bleach on it and using that for disinfecting, is because you have to completely soak something for it to kill the virus, the bacteria, whatever is sitting around. So in the case of coronavirus, it's not going to kill it if, there's a spray that you spray in the air, and the virus is not getting saturated with that. It has to be completely wet in order for it to seep in and kill it. So those disinfectant wipes or a cloth that's damp with some bleach is the best way to go. And then the next thing is you want your team to feel comfortable. Happy employees are productive employees, and everybody's in panic mode right now in the world. People are freaking out. People are fearful. People are afraid of for their lives. And then others are, in denial. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is happening. It's all crap. So depending on where your team is, you have to gauge how much they need your reassurance. You have got to communicate your new plan. This is how things are going to be done in terms of daily cleaning, disinfecting. If we have a new janitorial schedule, this is when the janitors are going to be in here. And that way they know, they feel very comfortable, they feel very confident that you have their best interests at heart, that they're not coming to work and putting their lives at risk. Because when they feel like they're coming to work and you don't care if they die, then they're too busy paranoid about that to really do their best work. All right, so the best solution obviously is that you need to get an updated employee safety policy in place as soon as possible. If you have one already, you want to update it to include things that are very specific to this coronavirus. You want to have a daily cleaning and disinfecting plan for your space where your employees and yourself are. You want to provide essential supplies, tissues, wipes, disposable gloves, face masks. Even if you can't get access to the N95 face masks, I know even hospitals are having a hard time sourcing them. They're taking forever to come from China. I know people that are ordering for hospitals, and they're paying $7,000 in FedEx just to try to get them here quickly. You don't have to expense yourself like that. Right now, everybody's making cloth face masks and they're selling them. I've heard that Etsy's full of them. I haven't really been on Etsy. I'm not really the super artsy type, but I've heard that Etsy's full of them. I could imagine that eBay and other places probably are too. But whatever type of mask, just make sure that they know that you're willing to buy those things and make them available for them. And then a really easy switch out is go from having trash cans with lids that have to be touched to open to the non-touch, where you can use your foot or you can pass a hand and it opens. So try to minimize, that's just one example, but try to minimize any places that multiple people are going to be touching all day long. You want to just eliminate that as much as possible. And you want to post, bottles of hand sanitizer all over the place, as many different strategic locations as you can, so that if people are not wearing gloves, as they walk by, they can think, oh, I just touched that door handle. I don't know who touched it before me, and put the hand sanitizer on. You want to ensure that your bathrooms are always stocked with soap and paper towels. And I'm going to show you the paper towels are essential, because think of it this way. If you have, instead of paper towels, you have a reusable towel in your employee bathroom, how many people are touching that? You don't want that. You want something that they're using and throwing in the trash, one use only. And I even encourage you to switch to that in your homes as well. You want to disinfect door handles, light switches, other high touch areas multiple times a day. Now, I know if some of you are like me, sometimes I feel like I run a business, but really it feels like I'm running a daycare, because I'm the only one checking on certain things and getting certain things done sometimes. And it only feels that way. I mean, we all have, I'm sure, very competent teams, but there's things that they don't think about because they're not the business owners. So if your team, if this isn't top of their mind as they go through their day, just find a way to make somebody responsible or create a schedule so that you know it's getting done, because it's very important to make sure that things are getting disinfected multiple times a day besides just the normal daily janitorial disinfection. So you want to teach your employees as much as possible. You want to teach them to wash their hands properly. You want to teach them what scientists and doctors call sterile technique, which is, you think of everything as infected, and it's like, I'm not going to touch anything with my gloves until I'm ready to touch what it is I need to do. And then once I've touched whatever it is I need to do, then I'm going to take those gloves off and throw them away. So for example, if you're pumping gas, let's say you have a delivery guy and he's going out to pump gas. He arrives at the gas station, he gets out the truck, he puts on his disposable gloves, and he, punches in whatever information, swipe the card, and pump the gas, and then toss those gloves before he gets back in the truck. So sterile technique is how to correctly use the gloves and masks so that you're not cross-contaminating and contaminating yourself. So these are all things that you need to consider. And I should have said this from the beginning. You guys don't have to super stress about taking notes, because if there's something that you want in here, I'm pretty sure that the whole webinar will be recorded and shared and whatever. And if you specifically need it right away, I will provide my email address at the end, and you can send me an email. I'll email the whole thing over to you. All right, so this is an example of what I was talking about with teaching your employees to wash their hands correctly. And it sounds ridiculous. I mean, because you shouldn't have to teach grown-ups how to wash their hands, but I've got to ask, of you guys that use the bathroom recently, whatever time today was the last time you went, do you remember washing your right thumb? Not your left thumb, your right thumb. And you're going, what are you talking about, Karen? But I'm just trying to show you that when you wash your hands, you don't really think about it. It's something you've been doing your whole life. And this is new and unprecedented times where new techniques are needed. And we're literally needing to reteach adults how to wash their hands. And there's specific areas that get missed. And the thumb and the back of the hand are the two most common areas that do not get washed. And so if you really emphasize to your employees, this is important. We're trying to keep each other safe. We're trying to keep our families at home safe. We're, you know, if anybody has elderly parents, we're trying to keep them safe. This is the why behind why we're doing this, why we're asking all of you to relearn how to wash your hands, and it's okay. Let's practice it as a company. So these are the kinds of things I'm talking about that really need to be put in place, shared, put in a policy manual somewhere and given to everyone, posted on walls so that everybody gets what needs to be done. So how we've been helping our clients, like Bethany mentioned in the introduction, our team, we're all either PhD medical scientists or medical doctors, physicians. And so we normally work for healthcare type clients, healthcare, pharma, those kinds of dietary supplements, those kinds of businesses are typical clients that we write for. And as soon as this COVID crisis started, all of our clients that had any kind of essential business where they were still up and running started asking us for help with safety policies. And this was weeks ago. And we heard from clients that were in manufacturing all the way to, I love my typos, food banks. That is not the correct spelling of that word. And so we wrote some tailored policy manuals for those clients, and some could afford it and some couldn't. And we did what we could to help the ones that couldn't afford it, because we realized this is something that was really needed. And so after we worked through that for our clients, then we said, let's create a general manual that any company can use. And then, so we've been making that available for anybody to buy, order on our website. And we also are able to customize that for companies that want a tailored manual quickly and affordably. So we've been doing that. And so that's, you know, kind of the easy way to go. But for some of you, you already have some of these things in place. Maybe you don't need a policy manual. Maybe you already have, you know, as I'm talking, you're sitting there kind of checking off that you've already done a lot of these things, in which case, kudos to you. But just get something in place, because just like a normal safety policy, you want something in your employees' hands that very clearly outlines what's acceptable and what's not. And you want them to sign that they received it. Your HR person would tell you that they received it and they're going to follow it. And if they don't, that they understand they will get written up. So get that in place as soon as possible. So the real reason I'm here today, which I told you at the beginning, that I would go through my slides quickly. And I know you guys probably have at least a few questions that are specific to your business. So I'm here to answer them as best I can. So go ahead, ask me your very specific questions, give me scenarios, what ifs, you know, and let's think things through and make sure that you have everything in place to be safe, to have your employees safe, and everybody can be happy and productive working at their best. And like I mentioned, I am putting my email and my phone number up, which I'll put back up at the end when we finish the Q&A as well. So with that, I'm gonna stop my screen share just for a little bit so I can jump into the chat box if you guys have questions in there. If you want to raise your hand, then Bethany will go ahead and unmute you so you can ask your question.
Hey, Karen, we do have a question that came in from Jackie Wilson.
Okay. Hi, Jackie. I am going to read your question and then answer you. It says, I own a home staging company. The employees have all been equipped with gloves, masks, hand sanitizers. When we need to remove furniture from a property, we are sanitizing all soft and hard surfaces. Is there anything else we should be doing? So that's a great question, Jackie. So it sounds like you guys have all the right procedures in place. So I think it really is to go back and think through some of the things that I mentioned, where people sometimes are equipped with gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, sanitizing equipment, but they really haven't been in depth trained on the right way to use them to make sure that they're not putting themselves at risk or others at risk. And so it's making sure that they're not using the gloves and then you know, touching their face, touching their cell phone, getting in the car with it, not touching the inside of the mask, only the outside, things like that. That they know when to use the hand sanitizers. And then in terms of sanitizing all of the surfaces, hard surfaces are pretty easy because, like I said, a damp cloth, but soft surfaces are a little more tricky because people tend to sanitize with sprays, but the sprays are actually not the best way to go. A UV light sanitizer can be a lot more effective, and they have portable ones that can be used to go over a soft surface. Like if you're staging with a couch, you can, you know, kind of, I think it's 30 to 60 seconds depending on the strength of that UV bulb, and you can hold it over, and you basically, it takes, you know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes to go over the entire thing and make sure that each area got irradiated with the UV for the required amount of time. So I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, go ahead and type something else or raise your hand and you can be unmuted to talk.
All right, Jackie, so we have unmuted you.
Okay, thank you. So I actually purchased sanitizer for soft surfaces for professional use only. And so we're following the instructions where we spray it on the soft furnishings. It has to remain damp for 5 minutes, and then it's effectively killed any type of bacteria and virus. But if you think that I should purchase the UV light, I certainly will, because the goal is just to keep my crew as safe as possible. And when homes are closing, we have no option but to go and retrieve the furnishings because people are moving in.
Yeah.
So, but I just want to make sure that everything that I can do to minimize their risk is being done.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're following the protocol exactly, then it should work. So the issue that I mentioned earlier with the sprays is that when you're using a spray, the force of the spraying can actually dislodge virus particles that are on the surface and aerosol it into the air, which you can then inhale. But if they're wearing masks and wearing them correctly, covering their nose and their mouth, and, you know, no spaces at the sides and the top and so on, then their risk is minimal once they're spraying and they're getting another hard part with sprays is that it's hard to make sure you get kind of every square inch of surface sprayed. So that's why I said I like the UV sanitizers, because it's like you put the light over it and it sterilizes without having to make sure that every low area gets wet. But if you're confident and you're comfortable with that spray and your team is trained on how to use it correctly, and you're sure that they're, you know, kind of covering the whole surface, and then they're also wearing a mask so that anything that floats up into the air is not getting into their airways, then that's fine. Make sure they are comfortable with the correct way to use the mask so that they're not taking the mask off while they're wearing gloves, touching the inside of the mask as they're putting it on or off. Those kinds of things are watch out areas to make sure they're not doing anything like that. Because, I mean, face it, none of us in the regular world, we're used to gloves and masks all day long. So for me as a scientist, I'm comfortable with gloves and mask and all this stuff, and I know how to not contaminate it, but no one else does. And the TV's telling people to wear masks, but it's not telling them how to wear it safely and correctly. So there's a lot of videos floating around if you want to grab one of those and just kind of make sure they're doing all the steps and in the right order to put on, take off the masks and the gloves so they're not putting themselves at risk. That would be probably the next step.
Okay. Now, what one of my employees actually sent me, it's called a neoprene cycling veil. Are you familiar with them? It has a filter, and I think he'd be more comfortable wearing that versus the mask.
Yeah, I know it. I've never seen anybody wearing them in this type of environment thus far. I've seen a lot of the N95 masks, but yeah, it actually is a lot safer. And if he's comfortable with it and you're, you know, you have the budget to purchase it, you know, by all means, go ahead.
You know, they're really not that expensive. You know, by the time I keep going through a couple of masks per day, this is $9.99 and it's reusable.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'll go ahead and get that for them then. That
Yeah.
makes me feel comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Just make sure, I mean, the same rules apply, is
Mhm.
that they're using it correctly and being careful with what they're touching.
Okay. Perfect. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Jackie. Thanks for attending. Happy to
My
help.
pleasure.
All right, it looks like we're done because I don't see any other questions popping up.
Yeah, if you want to, do you have some information if anybody does have a question they want to ask? I know you kind of showed it at the end, but would you want to put it back up in case, you know, there's more questions? And also for everyone attending here, we will put this in our in the Maui app library. There's a group coaching session where you can put this. And right now as well, we do have a COVID-19 resources for businesses. And we will also put this video recording in there as well.
All right, fantastic. Thanks everyone for being here, and reach out. My email and phone number on the screen if you have any questions or comments, even some feedback. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
All right.